What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again. Yes, I am still alive, and we are coming out of hibernation for a brief moment. We are here with Jesse Leach of Killswitch Engage. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, it's an honor to finally be speaking to you. As a fan of your work and a fan of your lyrics, this has definitely been a bucket list for me on a personal level, and you've definitely been requested on this channel plenty of times.
Right on, brother. Good to be here.
Thank you. Is there a way you could turn your volume up just a little bit?
I can, or I can speak a little louder too.
Yeah,
How about
nice.
this? Hey, is that better?
Much better, much better. Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Cool. So we'll get like the more promotional question out of the way first, but this Consequence is a fantastic Killswitch record. Now, for me, it really hits hard for me on a personal level because I've been listening to you guys now for pretty much the bulk of my life. And to be 32 years old, having discovered you guys as a teenager, to still hear this material and still have the sound and the mannerisms of Killswitch Engage still resonate with me really is truly remarkable. It's like something you don't outgrow. Do you enter an album with a formula, with a sort of blueprint of what a Killswitch record is supposed to sound like, or do you take a new approach to basically every record?
Yeah, I personally take a new approach. I try to do different things. I try to think outside the box, but when it comes to the collective of Killswitch, there's definitely certain parameters that are put in place where you kind of still want to stay within the Killswitch sound and style. So we might push here and there, but on the whole, Adam as producer, he's kind of the guy overseeing all the creativity. So I might come out with an idea that is way off what we usually do, and he'll sort of bring me back in a little bit, which is fine. That I think that's what makes Killswitch great, is the signature sound that we have. But as an artist, I'm always pushing to give a little bit here and there, and some of that stuff bleeds in. You mentioned this Consequence. You can hear it on songs like Broken Glass, which is definitely a different sound for us, or The Fall of Us. It's a little more death metal. Like stuff like that excites me as I get older, to do stuff that's a bit different. And then you've got songs that to me just sound like Killswitch, which is cool too, man. So I think it's an ever evolving thing, and I don't think you're ever gonna pick up a Killswitch record and be shocked. I think people kind of know what they're getting into, but again, I take pleasure in trying to push outside of the lines, if you will.
Definitely. I will think, because contrast is definitely, I would say, the first thing that comes into my mind when I think of Killswitch Engage. And I wanted to mention this later, but you and Adam working together, watching you live and just seeing how different you are because I'm telling you that you are putting your heart and your soul and this energy, and I'm not saying Adam doesn't do this, but him telling those jokes right after you talk about a song that really is about like a personal trial and tribulation for you, I feel like the personalities on stage match the contrast of your sound too.
I would agree with that. It's something that took me a little while to get back into that groove when rejoining this band many years ago. But I think now it's something that I sort of expect and look forward to almost, because to me it makes it fun. I can say my piece and I'm very heartfelt, and that's in my nature. I can't help it. And Adam is too off stage. Don't get me wrong. He has his moments on stage too, but his gift truly is just being hysterical and saying off the cuff things, which makes for a fun environment. And I think that's what makes a Killswitch show great to me, is that contrast. You are gonna have fun, and hopefully you're gonna connect with the lyrics and have an emotional experience as well.
Well, do you think, because when every time I listen to a band say how the making of an album was, and they say, we all collectively came together, it was all a mutual love. I mean, I think where you have five guys making music together with their own artistic visions, that's a very rare situation for everybody to be on the same mutual path. But do you think that maybe if you and Adam and Joel and Mike and Justin are all in different worlds when making something, do you think that maybe helps make the contrast in a way, rather than everybody just being on the same page 24/7?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly, especially with this last record, that's exactly what happened. We all come from different sounds, different desires, different musical experiences and signatures, and that is what makes Killswitch for sure. And especially on this last record, they were very actively involved. Where the past, the demos come in from everybody, we sort through them. I'll throw some pre-production down, and Adam and I will hammer out stuff together and sort of present them. But This went through a process of, after I was done with the demos, I had to present it to everybody. It wasn't just me and Adam hammering it out. They were actively hearing everything every step of the way, which definitely made it a lot more difficult. But in the long run, I look back on it and I think it made this record what it is. I'm super proud of it. I would say personally it's my favorite record that we've made in like 10 years. And that is because there was a lot of push and pull and quality control to like make these songs a bit different.
Was that the reason why like there was such a gap between Atonement and this one? Because I was pretty. I remember when we got the first Kills, when we got Disarm the Descent, everybody was really excited. For me, this was the equivalent of like, you know, the new Carcass record, when the comeback album, if you will, like. And then, you know, we got Incarnate 3 years later, and then Atonement 3 years later. We kind of got that formula, but then, you know, a big gap plus a whole different world later with this Consequence definitely didn't just make it the traditional follow-up, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would first and foremost blame the shutting down of the entire world more than anything to throw us off our game, because, you know, once the world got back out and we were able to, like, you know, tour again, we didn't want to write a new record and start over. We hadn't even toured on Atonement. So for us, it was like, let's take the next year and a half, 2 years to tour on Atonement. You know, because when we got sent home from tour, it was like day 2 of like the world shutting down. So that, and approaching this new album, it really was of like, oh, what do I have to say? Like, you know, where's my artistic mind at right now? And that took a little while for me to figure out sonically and lyrically. And turns out I had a bunch of frustration and anger to get out before I could have the wherewithal to write a more positive sounding song. So, you know, I mentioned Broken Glass earlier. That's one of the first songs, if not the first song, that came out of the demos, and everyone unanimously was like, that, more of that. Prior to that, probably 6 or 7 songs were just completely shut down and rewritten. So the process was arduous, but because of that quality control, dude, I think it made me step up my game for sure.
You ever worried that the song you crop out will be a B-side one day and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Ha! I love all the B-sides. I'm so that guy. Those guys can't stand the B-sides. And, dude, I would say there's some bangers on our B-sides, man. I don't know. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I will say, and this is just as a fan, I will admit, and I like all the Killswitch songs, but for me, like, always when you release the first single, like, I always thought that wasn't the most hard-hitting song. Like, that just was, like, the perfect luring in. I know there's been too many instances, I won't mention names, where the band puts out their best 3 songs as the first 3 singles, and the whole album is, like, kind of just there, you know?
Yeah, I personally like the heavier stuff on this newest record. And I will fight to continue to write heavy. I think where we are in our career, it's good to write songs like I Believe. I love that song. It's a great song. But for me, especially looking towards the future, I want to do more hard and heavy stuff. I think it's more fun. And honestly, I feel like that's where we are right now in society. I think society needs aggressive music to help with, you know, being therapy for people who are feeling like they're going nuts.
With the contrast of your sound, though, because you have a voice, I'm not saying this to blow smoke by any means, but I put you up there with an eclectic voice, like on the level of a Mike Patton or a Phil Anselmo, at least as far as this like genre goes. When you are doing a very aggressive song, like Broken Glass, for example, when you go full in, versus a more melodic song, does a different side of your voice express a different side of who you personally are, or in the end, it's still coming from you, it all expresses the same energy?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously it's all me, and I think people can confuse anger with hate. And I've got a lot of anger in me, but not a lot of hate. You know, I'm not a very hateful person, but I'm angry. I think anger is more of a righteous feeling. So even with the heavy, more aggressive songs, if I sound pissed off and angry, I am, but it's not, the end game of that isn't for hatred's sake. It's because I want things to change for the better. So there's an urgency that runs throughout, whether it's hard or softer sounding, there's urgency there. But I think with some of the more mellow songs like Always or I'm Broken Too or I Believe, there's more of a melancholy, like a loving melancholy that I can channel that doesn't really come through as much with the heavier stuff. Mm-hmm. But all of it comes from a place of compassion and a desire to want things to be better for all of us.
when darkness and intensity, or a personal trauma or something like that, is the fuel to the fire, I know it always makes for great artistic inspiration, but sometimes I've always thought, and this is maybe my experience speaking, when darkness is like the fuel to the fire, sometimes we can become victims of our own product in a way. So is there like an art to channeling your demons or channeling this negativity without sort of succumbing to the madness in the process?
Yeah, and I think that's first of all, that's a great observation, and I would agree with that. And in my younger years, and it still happens every once in a while. You can't help it if you're going through something personally, or if the world's in a real shit place, and you find yourself on stage. It's easy to trickle into those feelings of darkness, those feelings of hatred or loneliness, or I get off stage, and there are times I get off stage and I don't want to be around anyone because I'm feeling that darkness. It stayed with me. So I think there is, through practice and through open discussion, through therapeutic talking with other people, band members, friends, family, you can learn to sort of live with your demons, because they're not going to go away. Whether it's an addictive personality, a mental illness, like that shit doesn't go away. You're never not an addict. You're never not somebody who has mental illness. You just have to learn how to function with it. But there are times you can take over, and you got to be careful. That's why artists, creative people, need to be careful with substance abuse, because if you're drinking too much, you reach a certain threshold. That darkness can take over real quick, and you turn into a different person. It's happened to a lot of people, including myself. So I think as an artist and a creative person, with the type of brains that we have, you've got to be careful with that.
I did always wonder how Earth Crisis was able to write.
Love that.
When you're singing a song, though, that is like You Don't Bleed for Me or Hate by Design or The Great Deceit, which is more of like an external source of inspiration, singing at the world that we're faced with, versus something that is very personal, like I Am Broken Too or Cut Me Loose. Do you think that it resonates with you differently, or do you have to kind of like maybe look outwards when singing about the world and look inwards when thinking about yourself, or is it all coming from the same places, if I'm asking that correctly?
Yeah, no, I think it's simultaneous. I think even with songs that are more personal, they're written with other people in mind as well. I try to write like a storyteller. So if it's something that is inspired by a personal thing, I'm still including you as the listener, whether it's me telling my story to you and wanting your sort of reciprocation as you listen, or live, I want to see it in your eyes and your face when you sing along with me. Or if it's something about the world, the corruption of the world, it's very much my personal view, but I always write with three ideas in mind. It's me, it's you, and it's all of us. So when I write songs, I'm trying to think of how somebody would perceive these lyrics, how to write in such a way where I'm not putting too much of my personality in there to take away from your interpretation of the lyrics, to allow you to own this song without me shoving a message down your throat. So even with the more political songs, the general message is think for yourself, fight the real enemy, look at the corruption up top, and less of bickering with each other. But I'm not writing very specific topics. I'm not talking about this particular battle or this particular political figure. I'm speaking in general terms, because I think there's more power in that, to empower people to sort of think for themselves. And that could go apply to a song like Cut Me Loose, which is about suicide. Bringing these topics to the surface via art, and allowing the discussion to happen without having to hammer somebody over the head with it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember when you played, I'll never forget this, when you were on the tour with Rise Against. You were playing at Central Park, great time, despite the worst sunburn of my life, but you played You Don't Bleed for Me, and I did not know that song had political context until you said, this is an FU to the politicians. For me, it always resonated with me, somebody who fucked you over, somebody who was using you, somebody who you thought was your friend, and I was saying that to cigarettes when I quit smoking, you know what I mean? So it's really interesting how art takes on a life of its own in a way.
Yeah, and I've heard stories of people talking about, religious figures. You could sort of listen to that song with those ears, coming out of a very strict religious household. I saw the hypocrisies of organized religion, the corruption that goes on behind the scenes with some of those things. So you could take that and put it into a religious thing, a political thing, or like you said, with something personal that you're fighting against, whether that be an addiction or something you're struggling with. That, to me, that's the buzz. That's the beauty. That's what I live for as a writer. To hear somebody else's interpretation and story about something that I've written. I love that.
Do you need the music to come up with the lyrics, speaking technically, or do you ever present Adam, or even with any of your other projects, and like say, this is what I want to sing about, and maybe that guides their hand with regards to the music?
I'd say predominantly the music first. Even if I've got lyrics written, which I write poetry all the time, and there's very few songs. Always was one of the only songs off the top of my head I can think that was pretty much already written, and I was a poem that I had been writing, and I was like, this would fit perfectly with this song. But 98% of the time, I'd say with Killswitch especially, it's the music. I hear the music and they're like, oh, I got this. I got an idea. It could be just a word or a phrase. So I'm very much the type of person that needs the music to sort of work. It's very rare, but I've been asked to by Adam for this next album cycle to write a bunch of things. So I've been writing nonstop. So we'll see if that switches. But usually when I hear that music, it strikes me in a certain way, and that's my inspiration, is what I'm hearing.
It's got to be heartbreaking when you have like the best lyrics ever, and then they're always like one syllable, like over every arrangement that you have.
Oh man, I know that all too well.
Yeah.
That is one of the things I hate more than anything, is having a great line and it just doesn't fit because it needs to be 3 syllables or 4 syllables to make that chorus pop or whatever. Yeah, the double-edged sword of writing a hook, for sure.
That should be the name of your autobiography, the double-edged sword, the double-edged hook, if you will.
Yes.
But if you don't mind me asking, because on a technical level too, when you are singing songs like A Bid Farewell or This Is Absolution, when you do sing The End of Heartache, As Daylight Dies, 2009 era, I still think you're killing it, and I could tell that you're putting just as much passion into that. Do those songs resonate with you on a similar level in a way?
They do now. I'd say when I first started singing them, it was a little difficult for me because I'd never really done that before in my career. I've never really, heard a song, or read a song, I'd say, and have to perform it. It's one thing when you're singing in your car and you can sort of relate to a song. It's another thing when I'm standing in front of people and they're looking at me and I have to present it genuinely. So for me, it was trying to wrap my head around what I thought Howard was thinking, like in the early days. To me, like after a full tour of singing those songs every night, it's just clicking with me. I'm like, these are emotions I can totally relate to. Missing somebody on the road, End of Heartache, like singing that every night, I'm like thinking of my wife, thinking of, my family. So it took a little while, but now, it doesn't matter if it's a Howard song or my song, I'm doing everything in my power to be present to those lyrics because I've written my own story that goes with them now.
Yeah, and it truly like incredible the way that you are able to do that. I mean, there have been times where like bands have had 2 singers, and I love their different eras respectfully. Sometimes I'd rather that they kept them in those eras, but to be able to continue to give those songs life is truly a talent in and of itself.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. It's tricky, man, and I get the whole people prefer this over that. I totally get it because I'm like that way with Van Halen. I get it. But at the same time, if you are the current singer and you're singing somebody else's material, the very least you can do is give it 100% your all to present a genuine performance to people, to show them that you're in this song, you're living inside of it, you're being present to it. That's super important to me.
When it comes to tracking the song, because I've been in recording studios before, and I find that interrogation rooms at a police station are sometimes more lively than those places sometimes, especially the vocal booth. How do you manage to bring the energy or the emotion that you express on that in such like a confined, rather static environment?
Adam D is a huge part of that. He knows how to, for lack of a better word, examine the lyrics and listen to me. And I can't count how many times he's been jokingly, he'll be like, hey, can you try that again, but maybe sing it like you actually fucking believe what you're saying? He'll bust my balls, because sometimes I'm so focused on hitting the notes, putting that performance out there that sounds like I'm singing well, because with my voice, I've always struggled with hitting those notes and making it sound good. It's a constant work in progress for me. But tapping into emotion, that's easy for me. I'm a total spaz, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. So striking that balance between singing it where it sounds good, it's in tune, and then getting the emotion behind it, that's something I have to kind of be reminded of every once in a while. And Adam has no problem doing that.
I mean, that's very impressive. But like, if you're working on something for a long period of time, or have to do dozens and dozens of takes of the same thing, do you find it harder to hold on to that emotion or that initial spark of inspiration? That's why you're there singing that song in the first place.
Yeah, I do, and I feel like we oftentimes go back to the first three that I've done and usually pick one of those, or we'll call five. He can tell I'm getting like frustrated or it's just not working, and he'll be like, "All right, either we move on or just take a break." So I'm gonna take a 5 minute break. He'll go get a coffee. I'll go step outside the studio, take a breath. He'll tell a joke. He'll check, the Patriots game, look at the score, and then he's like, "Are you ready?" And then we go, and then that take is the one. Sometimes it just takes a little break for you to like snap out of it, and then you go in with a fresh sound or fresh ears. So there's a method to it for sure.
Did this method always apply to every project, whether it would be Times of Grace, Seamless, The Empire Shall Fall, or The Weapon? Like, is it all the same method behind the madness, if you will?
Now, Times of Grace and Killswitch, very similar, obviously, because it's Adam. But I'm getting an echo. I'm hearing myself echo. Hold on.
Oh, you good?
Hey, hey, there we go.
Okay.
With Seamless, that was a completely different beast. That was fairly difficult because I didn't really have too much. The Weapon was, we recorded that shit in like 6 hours. Like, it was like no problem. That stuff was super punk rock. Not 6 hours, maybe like 7 or 8, a couple days. But those were like lightning fast takes, super like just get it out, which was really fun for me, a completely different style project. And then The Empire Shall Fall was a collective. It was fairly easy because all of us were kind of on the same wavelength with The Empire Shall Fall. We all knew what we wanted, and we all respected each other. Yeah, it's a project I love. I still love those guys, and I'm still super proud of that stuff as well.
And I wanted to circle back to some more lyrics ranging from your catalog, like "If I fall, will you be there to raise me up, or will I be the forgotten one?" To "Nothing changes in refusing to grow. Wisdom engages those who will grasp for something more." These are more than like lyrics to me, speaking in a way. Like, to me, they are things that we tell ourselves, and it makes me wonder when because you do have to tweak things to fit a song. There's no denying, like. But if I see one word, even if like a punctuation mark moved over, to me it would change the entire context of the song. So how do you get your point across, make it fit the song without necessarily compromising anything?
That's difficult. I think it takes a lot of brainstorming. Sometimes it comes out immediately, and I'm like, oh, simplify that, cut this, cut that. It's kind of like a haiku, done. Other times, I will beat myself up for days sometimes, and then just have to like close the laptop, get out of my studio, go for a hike or a bike ride, sleep on it. 9 times out of 10, I will wake up with the new idea, and I'm like, there it is. So sometimes it's immediate and it's beautiful and it's like lightning, and other times it just takes finesse. But I find that sleeping on an idea, work on it as much as you can, stop, sleep on it, your brain will sort of get rid of all of the noise, and then you'll see it a lot clearer. That's been my method.
And again, I always thought that for me that would be like the terrifying way, because what if you lose it altogether? That's always.
Yeah, but I'll have the notes, the voice notes, and if you look at my recording program when I'm doing that, I'll have 8 takes of just different stuff. I'll mute it, record another one, mute it, record another one, and then when I come back with my fresh idea, my fresh head, I'll record that. Then I'll go back and sort of listen to all of them and see what's what. So I don't erase anything until I'm happy with it.
As you shouldn't. Do you look for the inspiration, or do you have to let it hit you? Like, is inspiration really something that you could seek out, like it's information on Google, or do you just have to let it hit you?
I think it's both. Sometimes inspiration hits me and I don't even understand why. It could be the most random time ever, and my wife knows, like, Purple knows. I'm like, wait, shh, stop. I gotta write this down. Or I'll be out of a sound sleep, or I'll be driving in my car or on my bike and I have to pull over. And at other times, I'll just go and be out in nature, or I'll go down to New York City and sit in a cafe and just observe people. I'll walk the streets and I'll see something and I'm like, there's a story in that person. Then I'll get inspired. So seeking it out is either solitude or total immersion in people. And then the other side of it is sometimes it just comes out of nowhere and I don't know why.
Do you find that how we evolve as artists too? Do we have control? Can we dictate our own evolution, or do you just have to kind of let it evolve over time?
Again, I think it's both. I think you have to move where you're led, but you also need to steer as well. And I think there's certain decisions that you need to make. I've never met an artist who's just like whatever all the time, personally. But I've also never met an artist who is constantly die hard pressing at something. I think if you're striving too hard for something, you're going to miss some of the artistic magic, if you will. I think it really should be a balance of being led by your inspiration, whatever you want to call that, going where the spirit leads is what I like to say. And then sort of, deciphering it. And I think that takes personal choice. So I do think it's a twofold thing.
Because we as artists, we're always overthinking. It's like every interaction that we encounter, every object that we stumble upon. Well, you can write a song about any of it. I feel like that's what artists tend to do. They make everything seem significant. To quote Jamie Jossa, making something meaningless seem significant. How do you decide I'm going to write about this, or this is just a situation I should just let go and forget about, not that significant?
I think when I start writing it, if I get an idea and I start to embellish on it, I'll know within a few lines if I'm onto something, and whether or not I got to, work on this, or just kind of like maybe they'll just sit in my notes for another time when I'm desperate and I'm thumbing through my notes, going, is there anything here? Which 9 times out of 10 that stuff just gets discarded. But I think hopefully most artists will know before spending too much time, whether it's writing something or performing something or painting something. But you have to be unafraid to let things die. You have to be unafraid to let things just be an idea that just has to go away.
Yeah, it's always hard. They made fun of that on Family Guy one time, where they showed Randy Newman just literally sitting and singing about all day of what he sees, and then just somebody throws an apple at him.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was... I remember, I think 10 when I first saw that, and that was just one of the funniest. That's how I discovered Randy Newman, not from Toy Story, but from that.
Oh, Randy Newman. Such a weird artist.
You could definitely say that again. I have a couple more questions for you, but more personal fanboy. This year marks 10 years of Heavy New York, this channel, and really I could say that my idea to start it really came, I would say, during probably the most epic spring break ever, and that was the residency 10 years ago for Incarnate. That was when you and I first met. That's when I was just getting out of college at the time, so spring break of a lifetime. But Incarnate, again, Just Let Go, some of my favorite lyrics, I Love Until the Day, and many other songs. What was your third album with Killswitch, or technically fourth, but your sophomore in this return? What was that sort of mindset like?
It's, you mentioned Just Let Go. What a song. I forgot about that one. I love that song. Yeah, as much as there's some real positive stuff, I look back on Incarnate as a fairly dark time for me, personally. And I was trying to channel hope through that. So I think it's a really interesting record. Not my favorite of our catalog, but there are certain songs on that record that I love. But if I were to look at it as an album as a whole, it's kind of a sad record for me. Want to say It Falls on Me is on that one as well. Yeah. And that's about spiritual heartache. I just was in a really dark place. It was the last time I can remember in my life, aside from when I was going through a pretty painful divorce, where I was thinking about taking myself out. So as dark as that time was for me, I look back on it, and without Killswitch, without the music, without the fans, without that driving force, I don't know if I would have made it out. I think the music carried me during that time. And those shows, especially that residency, I remember that week it was just so much fun. I would love to do that again. Playing small shows, connecting with people, no crowd barrier, no security. like the old days.
That was
You know, it's,
that
yeah, I want to do it again, man.
that was
Love-
fun. Please do it again. I live 4 blocks from Gramercy, and every time I go to the renovated Webster Hall, I think of that bar. I think of that bar that's now where the Marlin Room used to be, where you played at, and I'm just thinking to myself, people don't know what went here that night.
It's awesome. That was fun.
Couple more questions going back to the artistic inspiration, and because one word I heard a lot was limits. Now I've heard countless people, not just artists, but say we all have our limits. Now I've always had a threshold, but at the same time I'm always wondering if I say this is my limit, this is how much I could put into it. I have this conflict of, am I really reaching a limit, or am I just being lazy? Do I really just want, like, for me, putting a piece of art aside just to go and play video games for 5 minutes almost sounds sacrilege to say, but I know it is needed sometimes. So how do you know when you are reaching a limit, or when you're kind of just like being lazy, or just capping it, being like giving up or something like that?
That's a really insightful question as an artist to an artist. And I can truthfully say right now in my life, I hit a wall of absolute exhaustion this past year, where I okayed myself to be lazy for a while. And through that, I learned that I needed it. And I think every artist has to do that. You have to have ambition, you have to have drive. But also, if you don't allow yourself periods of time to not produce, or not be on, or not be all over social media, if you, excuse me, spiritually, it'll catch up to you, and it did for me. And I was laid out flat for a while. Just all I could manage to do was make food and go to the bathroom for a solid, I don't know, maybe a week. And I started to feel really lazy and really guilty about it, because I know I have so many projects I've been working on. But, you know, people around me that love me, close friends, and you know, Purple, my wife, were just like, hey, you've been going nonstop for quite a while. It's okay. Chill. You deserve to relax.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't do that, you're going to burn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think to the contrary, like, it's never good to force art by any means, but it's never going to come out like, you know, as easy as exhaling every time either. Sometimes you do have to, like, maybe Full Metal Jacket yourself in a way. Maybe not that extreme, but like maybe maybe almost like have to, like, you know, maybe dig yourself out of it, and maybe like kind of tell your, this isn't, break down this limit, if you will. Like I've always said that there's truth to both.
Yeah, you know what kills me as an artist? Routine. And we all have it. You know, people always envision touring musicians as being free. But like, there's totally a routine. You have to show up for certain things. There's sound check, there's press, there's, you know, all these things you have to do. And routine kills me creatively. So if I come home and I'm writing a record, I get into these routines of like morning coffee, writing, break, go exercise, write. And the days where I like completely switch that routine up and I'm like, nope, today I'm gonna go climb a mountain, and I'm putting everything aside and I'm gonna have me time. That next day, after that day of breaking the schedule, creativity's there. It's at full access. So I think it's a matter of knowing when to switch it up, because routine can be mundane and makes you feel like Groundhog Day, and
Wow.
you're not going to have a unique perspective if you're just stuck in your artistic hamster wheel, if you will.
It's so funny you mention that, because I've heard plenty of artists say that they like the routine too, that like it keeps them grounded, it keeps them focused, there's less distractions. Sometimes when we're creative, maybe the unexpected can work against us too, right?
Well, I think there's a discipline you definitely need to have, for sure. But I find too much of that kills some of that fleeting, beautiful inspiration that comes from the ether. Discipline will give you a different type of inspiration. Personally, this is just me and the way that I work. I do have to show up and put in the work, especially when making a record, because there's time frames. You know, you have to put this thing out. You can't wait for years. But when I've hit that creative wall and I think that I'm like going through writer's block, I feel like that's just, you have to switch it up. Just switch up your routine, and that will hopefully cure that problem.
Now here's a real question. This is sort of like the emotional question I wanted to ask, as if none of these were emotional before. But like, that is the concept of how we grow as artists. Now, I've heard countless times throughout this industry, in the world of metal, I'm always the same guy. I'm never growing up, or I'm the same guy listening to Agnostic Front when I was 15, and I'm still the same rebel. I'm 32. I still love Killswitch Engage, but there is some rebellious meaning behind some songs that maybe were cool when I was 18, but now as a 32-year-old who's getting married, that maybe be like, this isn't my perspective anymore. As somebody who sings it, are you singing "This Is My Last Serenade" with the same mindset that you were when you first wrote that? Are you, singing "Lay Your Head to Rest for a Peace of Mind" and "Fixation on the Darkness"? Like, does it still resonate with you, or is it very much this is who I was in '02, and that's where it's staying?
I've had to, for the sake of, like I was saying earlier, being present in the songs, sort of reinterpret those songs to the modern me, the way I see the world. Again, the way I write, it allows you to, hopefully, the freedom as a listener to change with the material, which is why I don't write specifically songs like, naming a politician and putting it in the song. Like, to me, that I'm hopefully never going to do that. To me, music and art change just like you do. And hopefully you can change with it. Granted, you're going to hear a song like My Last Serenade and probably remember the first time you heard it and like, oh, this meant the world to me because of X, Y, and Z. Hopefully, music and art can give you the same types of feelings, but you can reinterpret them to sort of sit with a modern day you. And I've definitely done that with those songs where the conviction is there, but what's going through my mind is way different than it was when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was Life to Lifeless that was written about 9/11, and no doubt that as, experiencing COVID, that's what it represented to me. And it's cool because art is like it's life. Yeah, it grows, it develops, it evolves, and it can eventually die sometimes too. But do you sometimes find yourself when you are, like you said, you have to reinterpret it, that's good, but this metal lifestyle that we all love, and we're always going to be metalheads, we're always going to be punks, it's in our blood, but sometimes does the artistic creativity, especially with a band that has a very signature sound, do you sometimes that the creative aspect, the persona, sometimes is conflicting with personal growth?
Accurate, yeah. And I think it's a matter of managing yourself. Like days off, for example. When I'm on tour and have a day off, I'm not listening to metal music. I'm not like, I'm doing stuff like going to an art museum, listening to Brian Eno ambient records, meditating, taking naps. Like I'm doing the most non-metal shit ever now that I'm older. When I was younger, it wasn't that way. It was like everything was on 10, full on. And I think that goes the same with art. You don't have to carry the punk rock guilt. That was the big thing for me my whole life. DIY punk rock, you got to be this certain mindset. You got to think this certain way. You got to act a certain way. And as you get older, some of that stuff doesn't suit you anymore. I'm not the same angry 15-year-old that I was, but I still have traces of that person. We've just metamorphosized into something different.
Yeah.
And I've mellowed out with age for sure, but I can still tap into that stuff. And I think unless you've gone through a complete radical transformation as an artist, hopefully your early work can still speak to you in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to embody every single aspect of it, but hopefully you can still relate to, or at least empathize with who that kid was when they were writing that or going through that.
I don't know.
And that's what I love about metal and hardcore is like, and even punk, is the anger can change, but anger is beautiful. Anger is a weapon. Anger is something you can use to create change. And that definition of why you're angry can change, but it's still anger.
It's still, well, I've always said you are definitely an artist who inspires people to use our darkness as our armor rather than our anchor. And I think that's why so many people resonate with your music in that sense. Do you find, though, that maybe when you are like, does sometimes it feel a little insincere? Like, I've grown so much since I've sang Alive or Just Breathing, and like I don't feel like I mean this. Am I even doing the song justice anymore? Not to say that I love those songs and you kill them every time, but I'm wondering if personally it's like, is this still really me?
I'm happy to say that it is.
That's awesome.
Which is, yeah, which, I can still relate to almost every song I've written. I'd say off the top of my head, yeah. And again, I not to sort of toot my own horn here, but I think it's because I've written them general enough. It's not like I'm Zach De La Roca talking about, this particular revolution. It's not particular. So if you can write lyrics in such a way where you can sort of define them how you want, I do that myself.
Yeah.
I revisit a song and sort of recreate it so I can sit with it on stage and be genuine. So when you look at me, you see I'm not phoning it in. The only time you're not going to see me intently in it is if I'm smiling or laughing. If someone's making me laugh, or Adam just said something, or there's a part in the song that we all know somebody screws up and they don't screw it up, and you see the fucking happiness in all of our faces. That's the only time I'm not like in the song, but I'm still present to what's happening. So, my face, if I'm laughing or smiling, I'm present to my band or something that happened. But if I'm like intense and into it, I'm thinking about the lyrics of that song and how they apply to who I am now.
It's really, like, I can't say how funny it is, because last year at around this time I interviewed Burton from Fear Factory, formerly of Fear Factory.
Shout out to Burton.
And we were talking about demanufacture, and I asked him, are you saying I got no more goddamn regrets the same way now when you were 25? And he was like, no, I have plenty of fucking regrets.
Out of step, no regrets, but you have those moments where you look back and I wish I did this differently. But at the same time, it's kind of pointless, right? I mean, regret is pointless. It's good to look back and think of things. I just don't hold on to the word regret. But I think it'd be foolish not to analyze things that you've done in the past and sort of learn from them to make changes as you move forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's funny. I can relate to that, yeah.
I have a few more questions for you, if that's cool.
Yeah,
one is about the live performance, and that because you were talking about when you're smiling or having all this, you're not fully in the song, but your crowd interaction and your stage presence, I think, is also something that's like truly memorable about a Killswitch show. There's plenty of bands where I love their music, but I'm kind of, if they come into town, I'm like, oh, I'll catch them next time or whatever. But I always have to see a Killswitch show because of the entertainment aspect of it. Is the crowd interaction that you have, is that something you can really practice or rehearse, or this punk rock vibe, or is that just a natural thing? You either have it or you don't.
I mean, I'm sure you could rehearse it. I guess the only way you could sort of rehearse it is by touring, by just getting out there and doing it over and over and over again. But I find personally, I try not to repeat myself. I'm even aware of like where I am on stage during a certain part of the song. I try not to duplicate it from the night before, but I think overthinking can spoil it too. I think the human body looks for patterns, right? So like as an artist, you're constantly looking for the patterns. And sometimes I'll throw a wrench into my own gears just to mess it up and do something different. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think you kind of have to let it flow. I think let it flow and then practice it by just performance. I don't think you can sit in a room in a mirror and sort of, I don't know, become the person you are live, because I feed off of the energy of the crowd in Switzerland at like 9:00 and it's been sold out for 5 months.
Yeah.
It's the crowd. To me, it's the crowd. If the crowd is on fire, then I'm on fire. And if the crowd is like, I'm still giving you everything I can, but that show is not going to be as good because the audience isn't locked in.
And also, I think it depends on your tours. I've seen you with Lamb of God. I've seen you with Disturbed. I've seen you play with Lacuna Coil. I've seen you guys play with so many different like types of bands. I know you guys played with Candiria many times. Shout out to Johnny. Is there just like, I'd imagine that the package too maybe makes an impact as well, right?
It does. Trial by Fire, touring with a band like Iron Maiden, for example, like that first, because we've thankfully done more than one tour with them, but that first Maiden tour, I was like, you have this whole huge section of the stadium that would be our entire Killswitch show, and it's packed with VIP Maiden fans that are wearing Maiden hats, Maiden shirts, and just like waiting for Maiden. That's intimidating, but you got to learn to show people that we're up here having fun regardless. You don't have to like us. It helps if you like us. It helps if you're banging your head and at least having some fun with it. But sometimes you got to win people over. And it's not always like, hey, chuck us out. We're awesome. Sometimes it can be just us, and we are very good at this. We look at each other, we're like, let's just have fun tonight. Like in front of 60,000 people at a stadium filled with Iron Maiden fans, there's got to be some of our fans in there. Let's play to them. Let's have fun. And sure enough, as the set progresses, you see people who, oh, those are definitely our fans. There's a circle pit over there. Those are our fans. And then the people who weren't necessarily our fans, hopefully 9 times out of 10, well, at least had them headbanging and going like, hell yeah, this is good. Good job, guys.
I sadly
trial by fire.
I sadly didn't get to see that tour, but I remember like yesterday that was being announced. I remember you just had your vocal surgery, I think, at that time too. And and I remembered when that tour got announced, and I said to myself, what the fuck is Adam gonna say to those fans out there?
He was fairly tame on that. It was more just like party and beer, just, because we didn't want to go too crazy. It's funny. I guess you kind of change a little bit depending on who you're playing with,
Yeah.
If we're opening for a band like Slipknot, which we've done, and those are our homies, all bets are off. It doesn't matter what we do. When you're opening for a band like Maiden, especially in a place like Europe where they're just massive, you kind of want to play a little bit. We want to be who we are, but even some of the song selection, we're like, oh, that's a really cool melodic riff that Maiden fans might like. Beyond the Flames became a one we played every night on that tour because the riffs reminded us of Maiden. It's like, oh, it kind of sounds a little like Maiden. So I think there's a little bit of that you kind of have to do because you want to win people over. You want to get new fans. But
yeah, I think
some nights all bets are off, and then Adam just says whatever the fuck he wants.
And Time Will Not Remain, I thought would have been a good one for that show.
I fought for that song for like 2 years. Oh, I love that song.
Oh my
Shot
God.
down every time.
Oh,
Shot
God.
down every time. One of my favorite songs.
I say it now. That is, please bring that. You could replace In Due Time for one show and play that one instead.
I'm always trying to bring those types of songs in, but to no avail. Yeah.
And the final question I wanted to ask you, kind of saved like the more. I love having this genre discussion. I know sometimes we cringe at the whole metalcore label, and I understand why, but it goes without saying, with the rise of Bad Omens and Fit for a King and Currents and a lot of these other bands era, they are holding. I remember listening to interviews with you guys and Shadows Fall and All That Remains and On Earth, and I've heard you guys say, we're inspired by hardcore and a lot of Iron Maiden and a lot of Slayer, but I'm hearing a lot of these newer bands saying, yeah, we took inspiration from Killswitch Engage and All That Remains and On Earth and Under Oath and whatnot. So, one, what is your take on that genre now that it clearly, I feel like, has a legacy of its own? I think you guys, in a way, had sort of like a similar impact in a way that the way nu metal kind of did. Whether you like the genre or not, it clearly inspired a whole new generation, and I definitely think that this metalcore movement with you guys on Massachusetts and Southern California definitely revolutionized it as well. So seeing bands take inspiration from you guys, has it made you look at your own genre with like a little more respect? And take example, My Chemical Romance used to hate the emo title, now they wear it with pride. So
right. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I wear metalcore with pride, but because I don't even know what it is anymore. But that being said, the bands you named, for example, like, I'm honored. If anyone names us as an inspiration, that's awesome. That makes me super proud. And the fact that, especially bands like that who have success with it, that's even cooler. It's good for all of us. I look at that with any band. It doesn't matter who they are. Bring Me the Horizon, Turnstile. Like, good. I'm not a hater at all. I love that rock music, metal music, hardcore music gets a push. Whatever band that is, whether you like what they're doing sonically or not, or you think they're cheesy or you think this and that, like, I almost feel like just shut up. Let people, give them their flowers, man. Because years down the road, too, they might be taking you out on tour, which is another thing, too. Be humble.
Yeah, absolutely.
We stood on the shoulders of giants. Like, I could honestly say, without bands like, for me, like At the Gates, Entombed, Carcass, Edge of Sanity, My Dying Bride, even, Opeth, In Flames, like, we stood on all of their shoulders, including Sick of It All and, all the hardcore bands, Cro-Mags. I love all those bands, and I've met some of those musicians, and they're like, that's so cool that you were inspired by us. And I look at the generation before us. If you can be like that, why would I not be like that?
Yeah.
So if I meet somebody who's got eyeliner on and hair in their face and they're like, we love Killswitch, I'm like, that's awesome. Go out and do your thing. I don't care what you're doing. If you love it and you're doing it for the right reasons, even if it's not my particular taste, something I wouldn't put on and listen to, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all of us. It's a win for all of us. That's the way we need to look at it.
That absolutely. I couldn't be more grateful to hear you say that. And what's funny is you said you don't know what it is. I still don't know what it is. I ask people.
It's changed, which is kind of cool. You know,
Yeah.
you could look at a band that is called metalcore now versus what was metalcore then, and it's completely different.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Most of the time, I'll get the answer like it's music that has singing and screaming in it, but Amorphous was never called a metalcore band or
Yeah.
Fear Factory.
Right.
So like, I think like, and the metal and hardcore thing too, I never understood either because I listen to Agnostic Front. I listen to Sick of It All. I hear the same power, the same aggression, the same intensity as I would hear in a Slayer or a Slipknot or a Morbid Angel or Anthrax or something like that. So even still separating that, you guys don't really sound much like Misery Signals, and they don't sound very much like All That Remains. I mean, look at the direction ATR took over the years too. So.
Yeah. It to me, it all at the end of the day, it's metal, and I'm a total metalhead, and I love it. I'm a hardcore kid. I love hardcore. I love punk. I love all it. Aggressive music is my home, and I'm rooting for everybody. I really am.
That's awesome. That's what a great final like line. Before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Finally making this happen. This is probably going to be the last interview for an indefinite period of time, with good things happening. But so to really have you come on the show, it was definitely like the final boss I was working towards
That's funny.
these last 10 years. Just the usual promotional stuff. What else could we be expecting in the Killswitch camp? Anything new with any other projects? Any tours that you'd like to plug? Say it all.
Yeah, I mean, be on the lookout. We're about to announce a bunch of stuff, which is great because I'm getting stir crazy. I've been home way too long. But that being said, I've got a bunch of collaborations I've been working on. And I almost don't want to say it, but I need to say it to keep myself accountable. In the next couple of years, I've started working on solo stuff. So hopefully some type of a solo project in the works for fun, as well as we're looking at getting writing with Killswitch within the next year or so, probably.
Oh hell yeah! I cannot wait to see what you do without an Adam, without a Joel by like when it's just you. I'm excited to see.
It's gonna be different, very different. But you know, I need to do it. I need to do it for myself.
And as you should, as you should. Thank you so much, everybody. Jesse Leach of Killswitch Engage, Times of Grace, The Weapon, Seamless, Empire Shall Fall. Hope I said it all. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you whenever.
All else.